dare enter, a place forgotten by time, where shadows breathe, and the dead still remember. Sit, watch, and do not look away.
The house had been abandoned for nearly 70 years before I arrived. At least, that's what the locals said when they dared to speak of it at all. The Holloway place, perched on the outskirts of the forgotten town of Galesbrook, it loomed over the river valley like a carcass too stubborn to rot. Its windows were gaping holes. Its roof sagged like a broken spine. Ivy clawed up the sides, as if trying to pull it back into the earth. It wasn't on any official maps. No property records. No ownership deeds. Just a whisper that carried through the bars and gas stations. Stay away from Holloway Place. I didn't listen. I should have. I was 28, broke and desperate for a project. Restoring abandoned houses had become something of a grim passion for me, a way to pour my restless energy into something tangible. When I heard about Holloway, it sounded perfect. Cheap, remote, a challenge big enough to swallow my thoughts whole. The first time I saw it, I parked at the rusted iron gate and stared up at its shattered silhouette against the gray sky. It stared back. I had a key, though God knows from whom. It arrived anonymously in the mail, wrapped in a yellowed scrap of paper bearing only a single line. If you go, you must stay. I chalked it up to local superstition. A story to scare children. I wish I'd understood. The key was cold in my hand as I pushed open the gate. It screeched on its hinges, a scream swallowed quickly by the thick mist that clung to the valley floor. The driveway was little more than a path now, choked with weeds and fallen branches. Each step toward the house felt heavier than the last. By the time I reached the front porch, my chest was tight, my breath misting in the cold air. The front door stood slightly ajar, its wood warped and splintered. I pushed it open. The smell hit me first, mildew, damp wood, something sweet and rotten underneath. The interior was a tomb. Sheets of dust blanketed everything, broken furniture, shattered mirrors, picture frames hanging at drunken angles. And beneath the dust something else. A stillness. A waiting. I told myself it was just my imagination. Just nerves. The house was dead. It had to be. The first night I set up camp in what remained of the living room. A sleeping bag, a lantern, a thermos of coffee. The wind howled outside, rattling the broken shutters. Floorboards creaked and popped with the settling of old bones. I huddled in my sleeping bag, trying to read by lantern light, trying not to notice the way the shadows moved just beyond its reach. Around midnight, I heard it. A soft, rhythmic tapping. Tap, tap, tap. I froze. The sound came from upstairs. Footsteps. No. Something lighter, faster, almost playful. I told myself it was the wind, the house shifting. But the taps grew louder. Closer. Descending the staircase. I held my breath, heart hammering against my ribs. The lantern flickered. For a moment, in the dim, stuttering light, I thought I saw a figure at the top of the stairs. Small, pale, watching. And then, darkness. The lantern died. The tapping stopped. The house fell silent again, save for the ragged sound of my breathing. I didn't sleep. I sat there in the dark, clutching a crowbar I had found among the rubble, staring into the blackness, waiting for something, anything, to move. Nothing did. Morning came, pale and sickly. I convinced myself it had been a dream. A trick of the light. Fatigue. Nerves. I set to work. The days became a blur of scraping, hammering, and hauling debris. The house fought me every step, doors jamming, walls crumbling, entire sections collapsing when touched. And always just at the edge of hearing, that tapping. At night, it returned. Sometimes upstairs. Sometimes behind the walls. Sometimes just outside the door of whatever room I was trying to sleep in. And always, always, the feeling of being watched. Not with malice. Not at first. Something curious, hopeful. Like a child waiting for a game to begin. I told myself I was imagining it. Until the night I saw her. It started with a glimpse. A flicker of movement at the corner of my eye. I had been working in the upstairs hallway, prying up warped floorboards to replace the rotten beams beneath. Dust hung heavy in the air, each breath thick and rasping. The sun had dipped low, casting long shadows through the broken windows. I straightened up to stretch, wiping sweat from my forehead, and caught sight of something in the cracked mirror leaning against the far wall. A girl. Standing behind me. Small. Pale. Wearing a tattered white dress that drifted around her like mist. Her face was obscured, turned slightly away. I spun around. The hallway was empty. My heart stuttered in my chest. I stared at the mirror again, but the girl was gone. Only my own haggard reflection stared back at me. I told myself it was fatigue, the isolation playing tricks on me. But deep down I knew. I wasn't alone. That night, I didn't bother trying to sleep. I sat by the dying fire in the old hearth, staring into the embers, listening to the creaks and groans of the house settling into the night. And the tapping. Always the tapping. But now, it was accompanied by something else. Laughter. Soft, high-pitched, childlike. It floated down from the darkened upstairs, threading through the broken walls like a ribbon of smoke. Mocking. Inviting. I gripped the crowbar tighter. The fire guttered, casting long, writhing shadows across the floor. And then, footsteps. Light. Skittering. Running across the floor above me. I didn't move. Couldn't move. The laughter grew louder. Closer. And then, silence. The fire hissed and popped. I stared into the darkness, waiting. Half expecting, half dreading, to see her emerge from the stairwell. But she didn't. Instead, something else happened. Something far worse. The walls began to bleed. At first, I thought it was a trick of the firelight. Dark stains creeping down from the ceiling, pooling across the warped floorboards. But the smell hit me, thick and metallic. Blood. It oozed from the cracks in the walls, dripped from the ceiling beams, seeped up between the floorboards. I scrambled back, heart hammering, the crowbar slipping from my sweat-slicked hands. The room swam around me. Voices whispered from the walls, low, urgent, frantic. "Come play, stay with us, forever." The fire guttered and died. Darkness swallowed the room. I bolted. Through the hall, up the staircase, past the shattered windows and crumbling walls. Anywhere but there. The house twisted around me, corridors stretching, doors slamming shut, stairs leading nowhere. I was trapped. The Holloway place was alive, and it was playing with me. I don't know how long I ran. Hours. Minutes. Time had no meaning. Eventually exhausted, I stumbled into a room I didn't recognize. A child's bedroom. Faded wallpaper peeled from the walls, a pattern of laughing clowns and carousel horses. A small bed sagged against one wall, the mattress dark with stains. Toys littered the floor, broken dolls, cracked wooden trains, a rocking horse that creaked back and forth of its own accord. And on the far wall, drawn in something dark and dried, were words. "Stay and play." I backed away, heart pounding. The door slammed shut behind me. I spun, too late. The girl was there, standing between me and the door. Closer now. I could see her face. Or rather, the lack of it. Her eyes were hollow pits. Her mouth was stitched shut with black thread. Her skin was gray and cracked like old porcelain. She tilted her head at me, as if curious. And then she moved. Fast. Too fast. I barely had time to scream before she was upon me. Her hands were ice as they closed around my wrists. Thin, brittle fingers, but strong, impossibly strong, pinning me in place. I struggled, kicked, screamed. But my voice seemed swallowed by the house itself. Her hollow eyes stared into mine, black and endless. And in that terrible gaze I saw things. Memories. Not mine, but hers. A girl, no older than 6, twirling in a white dress. A birthday cake. Candles. Laughter. A mother's soft voice, singing a lullaby. A sharp knock at the door. Voices raised. A scream. Then, darkness. Pain. Cold. A sense of falling. And then a silence. An endless, suffocating silence. The visions vanished as suddenly as they came, leaving me gasping for breath. The girl's grip loosened. Her head tilted again, a small, almost apologetic gesture, and then she stepped back. I stumbled away, heart hammering, my legs barely able to hold me. She pointed to the corner of the room. I followed her gaze and saw it. A trapdoor. Almost invisible beneath the torn rug, its edges worn smooth by time. She looked back at me, pleading. And for the first time, I understood. She wasn't trying to hurt me. She was trying to show me something. Something hidden. Something the house didn't want me to find. I crossed the room slowly, every nerve screaming. The girl watched me with those hollow, broken eyes. I pulled back the rug and grasped the iron ring embedded in the trapdoor. It was heavier than it should have been, and as I pulled, a foul stench rushed upward, a mix of damp earth and rot. Below, a narrow staircase spiraled down into darkness. Without thinking, or perhaps because thinking would have stopped me, I descended. The girl stayed behind, standing at the edge, watching. As if she could go no further. As if whatever lay below was not meant for her. The steps groaned under my weight, each one slick with moisture. The air grew colder with every descent. At the bottom, I found myself in a narrow stone corridor, the walls slick with algae, the ceiling low enough that I had to crouch. Faint light flickered ahead, a sickly greenish glow. I followed it. The corridor opened into a chamber. And in the center of that chamber was a well. Old, crumbling, its stones blackened by moisture and mold. Chains dangled from its lip, disappearing into the darkness below. And carved into the stones around the well, hundreds of tiny handprints. Children's handprints. Some small, some even smaller. Frozen in stone, frozen in terror. I approached the well slowly. The air above it shimmered, distorted, as if the very fabric of reality was thinner here. And from deep within the well, I heard it. Whispers. Countless voices layered atop one another. Calling, crying, begging. Help us, let us out, save us. I leaned over the edge. The darkness inside was absolute. Bottomless. It felt like if I stared too long, it would pull me in. Not just my body, but my mind, my soul. I stumbled back, shaking. The whispers grew louder, more frantic. And then, from behind me, a voice. Soft, familiar. My mother's voice. Sarah, come here, sweetie. It's safe. I froze. My mother had been dead for 10 years. I turned. The girl was there. But it wasn't her anymore. Her face twisted and contorted, splitting open in a grin too wide, too wrong. Her stitched mouth tore open, black ichor spilling down her chin. And she spoke with my mother's voice. Come home, Sarah. The walls of the chamber rippled. The air thickened, pressing against me. Hands clawed up from the floor, skeletal, broken, grasping at my ankles. The house wasn't just alive. It was hungry, and it wanted me. I ripped myself free from the skeletal hands and stumbled back from the well. The false image of my mother, the thing wearing the little girl's body, moved closer, dragging itself across the floor in broken, spasmodic jerks. Its voice shifted, twisting, becoming deeper, more guttural. Stay forever. The chains dangling from the well rattled violently. I turned and ran. Back into the tunnel, slipping on the wet stones, heart hammering against my ribs. The house was awake now, fully awake, and it was angry. The walls pulsed and shifted, oozing black ichor from cracks that hadn't been there before. The floor buckled under my feet, trying to trap me, swallow me. I sprinted up the spiral staircase, the rotten steps splintering under my weight. The trapdoor above yawned open, but the room beyond was no longer the child's bedroom. It was something else. A void. A swirling vortex of darkness and broken memories. Images spun through the mist, a woman sobbing over a cradle. A man hanging from a rafter, his face purple and bloated. Children, dozens of them, lining the walls, their faces pale and blank, mouths stitched shut. I stumbled into the void, coughing, choking on the thick, oily air. The girl's broken laughter echoed all around me. And then, a door appeared in the darkness. Massive, ornate, carved with strange writhing symbols that seemed to crawl across its surface. A door out? Or another trap? I had no choice. I ran toward it. The door swung inward at my touch, revealing a long corridor lined with mirrors. Hundreds of them. Each mirror reflected not me, but another version of me. Some older, some younger, some twisted into horrifying parodies of humanity. In one I saw myself with hollow eyes and stitched mouth. In another, I was hunched and broken, dragging chains behind me. Each step forward pulled me deeper into the maze. The mirrors began to whisper. You're one of us now. You belong here. There is no leaving. I covered my ears, tried to block it out. But the voices were inside me, crawling under my skin, writhing in my veins. I broke into a run. Mirrors shattered around me, sending shards flying through the air. Each shard reflected a different nightmare. A child's hand reaching out of the well. My own face splitting open in a silent scream. The girl in the white dress, watching, always watching. I didn't stop. I couldn't. At the end of the corridor, another door loomed. This one was simpler, plain wood, splintered and old. I burst through it and fell into darkness, fell through memory. I was back, standing on the porch of Holloway Place. The sun was shining. Birds chirped in the trees. The house looked almost normal. Whole. Alive. A man stood on the porch, smiling warmly. Middle-aged, with kind eyes and a neatly trimmed beard. "Welcome home," he said. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. The world wavered around me, like heat rising from asphalt. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. I stepped backward, and my foot sank into the porch. Into flesh. The house groaned. The man's smile widened, too wide, splitting his face open, revealing rows of jagged yellow teeth. His skin peeled away in strips, falling to the ground like shed clothing. And beneath, the girl. Always the girl. She reached out to me with blood-slick hands. "Stay and play," she whispered. The world shattered. I woke screaming. Curled up on the floor of the ruined living room. The fire was dead. The room was dark. But the tapping had returned. Closer now. Just outside the door. And this time, it wasn't playful. It was patient. Insistent. I wasn't a visitor anymore. I was part of the house. I sat there in the dark, heart pounding, listening to the slow, steady tapping on the other side of the door. It wasn't trying to break in. It didn't need to. It was waiting. Because it knew. The house knew. Sooner or later, I would open the door myself. Because that's how it worked. It didn't trap you. It invited you. Again and again until you answered. Until you belonged. I don't remember falling asleep. Or maybe I didn't. Maybe the house slipped something into my mind. Dreams stitched from my own memories. Twisted and poisoned. I dreamt of a little girl laughing. Of a mother singing. Of a door creaking open by itself. Of cold, tiny hands slipping into mine. When I woke, it was still night. The fire was dead, but the lantern flickered weakly. And the door was open. Just an inch. Enough to see the darkness beyond. Enough to hear the whispers leaking through. Sarah, Sarah, come home. I should have rung. I should have bolted for the car, the road, the woods, anything to escape. Instead, I stood, drawn forward as if by invisible threads. I crossed the room, each step slower than the last. The door creaked as I pushed it wider. Beyond was the hallway, stretched and twisted, impossibly long. The walls bled, the portraits wept black tears. The floor pulsed underfoot, warm and slick. At the far end of the hall, the girl stood, smiling, waiting. She lifted a hand and beckoned. Come. I went. The hallway swallowed me whole. Doors slammed shut behind me, trapping me inside. The walls closed in. The ceiling sagged lower and lower, forcing me to crouch, then crawl. Still, I moved forward. The girl receded further into the distance, always just out of reach. And all around me, the house whispered. Stay, play, forever. I lost track of time, of place, of myself. I wasn't Sarah anymore. I was just part of the house. Another ghost wandering the hollow corridors, endlessly replaying the same futile chase. The same trap. But something deep inside me, some last, stubborn shred of self, rebelled. I stopped crawling. I dug my fingers into the floorboards and pulled myself upright. The house screamed around me, a deep, guttural roar of rage. The girl turned, and for the first time, her smile faltered. I ran. Not toward her. Not toward the false doorways or shifting corridors, but sideways. Tearing through the rotting walls, splintering wood and plaster, carving my own path. The house fought me, walls thickening, floors crumbling, ceilings crashing down. But I kept going, kept moving. Toward what I didn't know. Just away. Away from her. Away from it. I broke through into a room I hadn't seen before. Small. Circular. Empty, except for a single mirror in the center. A mirror without a reflection. No walls, no ceiling, no me, only endless blackness. I approached cautiously. As I drew closer, images swirled across the mirror's surface. Scenes of other victims, other souls trapped within the house. Their faces twisted in agony and madness. Some screamed, some laughed, some simply stared empty-eyed into eternity. And then I saw myself. Not the me I knew. A version of me already hollow. Already broken. Already hers. The image reached out, hands pressed against the glass, mimicking my movements, beckoning, inviting. Stay. I raised the crowbar, the one thing that still felt solid, real, and with a roar I smashed the mirror. The glass exploded outward in a rain of silver shards. The world around me convulsed. The house shrieked, a sound of pure, mindless rage. The floor buckled. The walls split. The ceiling tore open, revealing a sky boiling with black clouds. And through the chaos I ran. The house collapsed around me as I ran, walls folding inward like dying lungs, beams splintering, the very air vibrating with fury. I didn't look back. Didn't stop. Didn't think. Only ran. Corridors twisted and writhed like living things, trying to catch me, trap me, pull me back into the rotting heart of Holloway Place. But something had changed. The mirror was broken. The illusion shattered. And for the first time, the house was afraid. I burst into the main hall, or what was left of it. The grand staircase had collapsed into a heap of rubble. The portraits on the walls were nothing but smears of blackened rot. The front door stood wide open, swinging crazily on its broken hinges. Beyond, the night sky. The real sky. Cold stars, distant and sharp. Freedom. I sprinted toward it, but the girl appeared again, blocking my path. She wasn't smiling now. Her hollow eyes were wide with something that almost looked like fear. Or rage. Or both. She reached out, and the house reacted. Floorboards ripped themselves upward. Nails flew through the air like daggers. The walls screamed. I dodged, ducked, stumbled, forcing my battered body forward. The girl's mouth opened, and from it poured a sound no human throat could make. A howl of despair, of hunger, of hatred. It battered against me, a physical force. I pushed through it. Each step was agony. Like walking against a hurricane made of knives. But I kept moving. Because if I stopped, if I faltered, the house would win. And I would never leave. I reached the porch. The air outside hit me like a slap, cold, clean, real. The ground trembled beneath my feet as Holloway Place began to collapse in earnest. The girl screamed one final time, a sound that shattered every remaining window, and then she was gone, swallowed by the crumbling ruin. I stumbled down the cracked steps, across the overgrown lawn, past the rusted gate. Only when I reached the road did I dare look back. The house sagged inward, imploding in slow motion, as if dragged into some unseen pit. Lights flickered in the broken windows, not fire, but something colder, hungrier. And then, silence. Holloway Place was no more. Or so I thought. I don't remember the drive back to town. Just flashes. Headlights cutting through mist. My hands clenched so tightly around the steering wheel that my knuckles bled. The sound of laughter, faint and high, trailing me through the night. I checked into the first motel I found. Collapsed onto the bed, fully clothed. Slept like the dead. Morning brought no peace. When I woke, the world felt thinner somehow, less real. Colors muted, sounds distant. I told myself it was shock, trauma. But deep down I knew something had followed me. Something had hitched a ride when the house fell. It's subtle at first. The way mirrors don't show my reflection quite right. The way shadows move against the grain of the light. The way sometimes, just sometimes, I catch a glimpse of a small pale figure in the corner of my eye. Watching. Waiting. I moved far away from Galesbrook. Changed my name. Built a new life. But it doesn't matter. Wherever I go, she's there. At the edge of dreams. In the gaps between seconds. In the cracks of old houses and the peeling corners of forgotten photographs. She's patient. She has all the time in the world. And one day, when I'm too tired to fight anymore, when I forget to check the mirrors or the shadows or the spaces behind doors left ajar, she'll take me. I don't know when, but I know it's coming. Because you can escape a house. But you can't escape a haunting. Not when it's inside you. The weeks after I fled Holloway Place blurred into one another, a smudged, feverish streak of sleepless nights and gray, hollow days. I moved from town to town, never staying more than a few days. Motel rooms, bus stations, cheap diners at the edges of forgotten highways. Always moving, always looking over my shoulder. But no matter how far I ran, it followed. The signs were small at first. A mirror in a restroom, showing a flicker of white just behind my shoulder. A whisper in an empty hallway. The faint, rotten scent of mildew and blood clinging to my clothes, no matter how many times I washed them. And then, the dreams. Night after night. Always the same. The tapping. The laughter. The door slowly creaking open. One night, in a nameless town I can't even remember now, I woke to find my motel room changed. It looked the same at first, the cracked wallpaper, the humming neon sign outside the window, the sagging mattress beneath me. But the door was different. It was the door from Holloway Place. Warped wood, rusting iron hinges, faintly carved symbols like veins under the surface. And behind it, the tapping. Steady. Patient. Waiting. I didn't dare move. Ear buzzed with electricity, the scent of rot thick in my throat. I knew if I opened that door, if I so much as touched the handle, it would all be over. I would never be me again. Never leave. I sat there frozen until dawn bled gray across the sky. When the first light touched the door, it crumbled into dust, and the motel room returned to normal. But something had changed inside me. A crack, a weakness. The house, the thing, was growing stronger, feeding on my fear, my exhaustion, my slow unraveling. It was no longer confined to Holloway Place. It was inside me now. And it was hungry. I tried to resist. Tried to build routines. Ground myself in the mundane. Grocery stores. Public parks. Libraries. Places filled with noise, light, people. But it didn't matter. The light bulbs would flicker when I entered a room. Children would cry when they looked at me. Dogs would snarl and bare their teeth, backing away as if I carried some unseen contagion. And always, just at the edge of hearing, that soft, rhythmic tapping. Getting louder. Getting closer. Every day. It was in one of those gray, half-forgotten towns that I found the others. I was sitting in a dingy diner at the edge of a crumbling strip mall, nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee, trying not to fall asleep. Trying not to dream. The bell above the door jingled, and a man entered. Tall, thin, hunched, like the weight of the world was pulling him down. His eyes, hollow, desperate, met mine across the room. He froze. I froze. Recognition flared between us like a struck match. He saw it too. He knew. Without a word, he sat at the booth across from mine. Up close he looked worse, skin sallow, hands trembling. But it was the look in his eyes that made my blood run cold. He had been running too. And he was losing. We sat in silence for a long time. The clatter of dishes and the murmur of other patrons faded into a distant hum, like a radio tuned to a dead station. Finally, the man spoke. His voice was raw, hollowed out by years of terror. "You hear it too, don't you?" I nodded slowly. There was no point denying it. He let out a bitter, broken laugh. "How long?" he asked. I hesitated. "Since Holloway Place," I said. His face twisted in something between pity and horror. "I thought I was the only one," he whispered. "Thought maybe if I moved far enough, forgot enough, it would leave me alone." He leaned forward, voice dropping to a ragged whisper. "But it doesn't. It never does." I swallowed hard. The diner suddenly felt too small, too bright, the air thick with the sour tang of sweat and fear. "What is it?" I asked. "A crack," he said. "A tear in the world, we touched it. It touched us." He shuddered. "Now we carry it." His name was Marcus. He had first seen it years ago, in a different place, a different haunted house, one with its own legends and blood-stained history. Different walls, same sickness, same endless hunger. "It uses places," he said. "Places where bad things happen. Places already thin, already broken." He looked at me with hollow, desperate eyes. "But it's not the house that traps you." He tapped his chest with a trembling finger. "It's you once it gets inside." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. I already knew. There were others. Marcus had met them on the road, in bus stations, in motels, in forgotten little towns swallowed by dust and despair. People who looked wrong. Too pale, too still, eyes too wide, too hollow. Some still fought. Most had given up. Wanderers, sleepwalkers, ghosts in their own lives, carrying the crack inside them. Just like me. Just like Marcus. We made a plan that night. A desperate, half-mad plan. If the crack was inside us, if we carried it, maybe we could confront it. Force it out. Trap it. Destroy it. We didn't know how. But we knew where. Holloway Place. The place it had first touched me. The place it had fed. The place it had been strongest. If there was any chance at all, any chance of ending this, it would be there. We left at dawn. 2 broken men in a battered car, driving back toward the mouth of the abyss. Back to the place where it all began. The road stretched out before us, gray, endless, devoured by mist. The farther we drove, the worse it got. Reality began to fray at the edges. Signs twisted into shapes that hurt to look at. Shadows moved in places there should be none. At one point, we passed a gas station that was identical to one we had seen hours earlier, down to the flickering neon sign and the one-eyed cat perched on the counter. Marcus didn't speak. Neither did I. There was no point. The house was already reaching for us, pulling us back. We were flies caught in its web, and it was hungry. The town of Galesbrook was a corpse by the time we arrived. The few buildings that remained leaned inward like rotted teeth. The streets were empty, cracked, overgrown with weeds. The sky above was a solid sheet of gray, sagging low enough to touch. And at the far edge of town, where the river bent like a broken spine, Holloway Place waited. Or what was left of it. We parked at the edge of the old road and sat in silence for a long time, staring at the ruins. The house had collapsed almost completely, just a heap of blackened timbers and jagged stone jutting from the earth like broken ribs. But even from here, we could feel it. The hum. The thrum. The pulse of something still alive beneath the rubble. Still watching. Still waiting. Marcus gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. "You feel it too?" I asked. He nodded once. Neither of us moved. Because we both knew the house was dead. But the thing inside it wasn't. It had simply changed. Adapted. It no longer needed the house to trap us. It had grown beyond walls, beyond floors, beyond physical form. It had become the place. The whole valley reeked of it. The air tasted wrong. The mist clung to our skin like a living thing. Reality here was thin, brittle, ready to snap. And once it did, there would be no going back. We climbed the hill in silence. Our boots crunched over dead grass and crumbled gravel. With every step, the world twisted. The ruins of the house seemed to shimmer, shifting between rubble and something else. For a heartbeat, I saw it whole again, grand and terrible, its windows burning with sickly light, its roof crowned in black spires. I blinked, and it was gone. Only ruins. Only bones. But I knew better. It was still there. Hidden just beneath the skin of the world. Waiting for us to tear the wound open. At the threshold, where the front door had once been, Marcus stopped. He turned to me, face pale, eyes hollow. "We don't have much time," he said. I nodded. We stepped inside. Or what passed for inside now. The world folded inward. The sky vanished. The ground dissolved into mist. We stood in a vast, endless space of shifting shadows and broken memories. The walls of Holloway Place hovered in pieces around us, doors floating without hinges, staircases twisting into the void. And everywhere, the tapping. Soft. Steady. Growing louder. Closer. The girl in white appeared at the edge of my vision. Not running this time. Not playful. Still. Watching. Waiting. Her hollow eyes locked onto mine. She lifted her hand and pointed. Not at me. At Marcus. Before I could react, he screamed. His body convulsed, twisted, pulled upward by unseen chains. His mouth opened in a soundless howl as cracks spiderwebbed across his skin, glowing with a sick greenish light. The house, the thing, was claiming him. Feeding. Consuming. I ran toward him, shouting his name, but it was like running through molasses, every step a brutal effort. Marcus turned his head, and in his eyes I saw terror, regret, and something else. Resolve. With a final shuddering gasp, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a jagged shard of mirror glass. He drove it into his own chest. The world exploded. Light and darkness collided, tearing at each other. The house screamed, a sound of breaking, shattering, dying. The ground beneath me split open. I fell, tumbling through layers of rotting memories, shattered time, broken dreams. The last thing I saw was the girl's face, no longer hollow, but human. Tears streaming down her cheeks. And then, nothing. When I woke, I wasn't sure if I was alive. The world around me was a shattered mosaic, fragments of places, memories, faces, all bleeding into one another like oil on water. I stood on a cracked floor that wasn't a floor, under a sky that wasn't a sky. All around me, pieces of Holloway Place floated in the darkness. The staircase, the nursery, the mirror corridor, the crumbling porch. They hung there, suspended, in a void that hummed with low, hungry vibrations. The air was thick, syrupy. Every breath felt like swallowing broken glass. And somewhere deep within it, the house still lived, still waited, still wanted. I staggered forward, each step pulling me through layers of memory. One moment I was a child, lost in a playground of rusting swings and broken slides. The next I was a teenager, standing at the edge of a darkened forest, the trees whispering my name. Over and over, the scenes looped, twisted, broke apart. The house was trying to rebuild itself. Piece by piece, using me as the glue. I stumbled onto a floating platform, what had once been the master bedroom. The shredded remains of a bed sat in the center, surrounded by shattered mirrors. And standing beside it, waiting for me, was the girl. No, not a girl anymore. She had grown. Tall, thin, dressed in tattered white that bled into the mist. Her face was hollow and cracked, but her eyes were human. Sad, ancient, and full of unbearable hunger. She lifted her hand, palm outward. Not beckoning this time. Stopping me. I froze. The air around her shimmered, coalesced. And then she spoke. Her voice was 1,000 voices layered together, like a choir of the damned. You broke it. I swallowed hard. Good, I rasped. A flicker of something, amusement, anger, sorrow, crossed her ruined face. You must finish it, she said, or it will rebuild. She turned and pointed. Beyond the broken fragments of Holloway Place, deeper into the swirling void, hung a single door. Old, heavy, blackened by fire. Chains wrapped around it, pulsing with sickly green light. Behind that door, the heart. The true source. The thing that had worn Holloway Place like a mask. The thing that had waited for me since the first night I set foot on its rotting floorboards. The girl lowered her hand. Choose, she whispered. And then she dissolved, a cloud of ash carried away on a breathless wind. I was alone. Again. I knew what I had to do. I crossed the broken landscape, leaping from fragment to fragment, each one spinning and groaning under my weight. The tapping followed me. Faster now. Urgent. Desperate. It wasn't trying to lure me anymore. It was trying to stop me. Because it knew that if I reached that door, if I destroyed what lay beyond, it would die. Forever. I reached the final platform. The door loomed before me, massive and terrible. The chains rattled, writhing like living things. The whispers grew louder, pleading, bargaining, threatening. Turn back. We can give you anything. We can be your home. I raised the crowbar, the same battered thing I had clung to since the first night. My last anchor to the world of the living. The door pulsed, the chains shrieking. The mist boiled around me, hands reaching out, grabbing at my clothes, my skin, my soul. I screamed and swung. The crowbar struck the door. A crack. Thin at first. Spreading. Widening. The green light flared, blinding. The ground split open. The tapping rose into a deafening roar. The world convulsed. The door shattered. The explosion of light and sound hurled me backward into the void. I tumbled through the shattered fragments of Holloway Place, through broken memories and dying dreams. Everything the house had ever devoured, every soul, every fear, every scream, spilled into the air like ink into water. I caught glimpses as I fell, children, free from their stitched mouths, laughing and crying at once. Twisted shadows howling as they dissolved into mist. Marcus, standing tall and whole again for a single blazing moment before fading into the light. And at the center of it all, the heart. Black. Pulsing. Shrinking. Dying. The thing that had worn the house like a shell. The thing that had fed on us for so long. It screamed, a sound that had no words, no meaning, just pure existential rage. And then, silence. Real silence. Not the heavy, watchful stillness of a predator hiding in the walls. Not the waiting hush of something gathering strength. True, clean, endless silence. I landed hard. Concrete slammed into my back, knocking the breath from my lungs. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on the cracked asphalt of the old road outside Galesbrook. The sun was rising. Weak, pale, but real. The mist was gone. The town, what little was left of it, stood silent and empty. No whispers. No tapping. No hollow-eyed children peering from broken windows. It was over. I staggered to my feet, every muscle screaming. The battered crowbar still hung loosely in my hand. I dropped it. It clattered onto the road with a final, hollow sound. The last anchor. Gone. I turned away from the ruins of Galesbrook, from the hollow place, and I walked. I don't know how long I walked. Hours, days, weeks. Time didn't matter anymore. Only distance. Only escape. And slowly, so slowly, the world stitched itself back together around me. Colors brightened. Sounds sharpened. The air grew lighter. The crack inside me, the tear Holloway had gouged into my soul, healed. Not completely. Never completely. But enough. Enough to breathe without choking. Enough to live without fear. Now, when I sleep, I dream of open roads, of endless skies, of houses with lights in the windows that don't flicker and die when you approach. The tapping is gone. The whispers are gone. The girl in white is gone. Holloway Place is gone. And me? I'm still here. Still broken. Still scarred. But free. And that's enough. For now.
The tale is over. but the darkness remains. Subscribe, or stay forever in the silence between screams.